Hello there, world of the internet. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to turn this into an actual thing, but I figure it might be fun to go ahead and do. So this right here, if I decide to go through with it, is going to be a new channel that I'm going to make, and I'm going to call it Should I Review Guitars? My recording studio is currently a room that is under construction. We have some very interesting artwork on the drywall there. I went ahead and I just stuck a couple of my guitars over here to serve as a background, and I mean, we all got to start somewhere whenever we decide to start a YouTube channel. Now, I already have a YouTube channel that I do. Normally, I operate in firearms, but I figure, hey, guitars are a pretty fun part of my life too, and I know a bunch of people that also enjoy them. So, why not start a YouTube channel about guitars? Now, I am a pretty mediocre player. Like, I am like novice on a good day. And one of my biggest issues is I don't really find the mental fortitude, the willpower, the drive to practice as regularly as I should. So I figure, hey, maybe if I make a YouTube channel and give myself a legitimate reason to go ahead and practice, I will go ahead and practice. So that's kind of one of the attempts that I'm doing. So what I'm going to do with this YouTube channel is I'm going to go ahead and, because I have, I don't know, a dozen guitars that I can talk about and show off, I'm going to go ahead and show off guitars, but not specifically the guitars themselves, meaning make and model like a lot of other guitar channels do. I'm going to go ahead and show off guitars that have a legitimate story behind them. A lot of people, whenever you look at some of this equipment, you think about, you know, man, if this thing could talk, imagine what it could tell me. Like, for example, recently Eddie Van Halen had passed away, and absolutely tragic, but if his guitars could talk, I would love just knowing everything that guitar has been through. I mean, we see what goes on the stages and whatnot, but there's so much in the background of these guitars that just goes unnoticed. And it's those stories, those hidden stories behind these instruments that I find really absolutely fascinating. So that's kind of what this channel is going to boil down to. Now, I was thinking about what I would show off on the first episode of this guitar channel. So what I'm showing off today, this right here, is obviously a customized Peavey Rockmaster. I figured the first guitar I should show off should be my first legitimate guitar. So this has obviously had a bit of custom work done. It used to be this really gorgeous silver with this absolutely immaculate pearl inside of the finish, and somebody had went ahead and sprayed a bunch of blue spray paint all over it. And let me tell you the story behind this old girl. Actually, I guess I should talk about the guitar itself. The Peavey Rockmaster is not a particularly expensive or desirable guitar. It's got a basswood body, rosewood, I believe, fretboard, and a maple neck. Nothing real fancy. The tuners are non-branded, non-locking. It's got two different string trees on it. A lot of people will say that is unnecessary, but I kept them there. I never really had any problems with it. I'm assuming that this is a plastic nut. We got a single humbucker in the bridge position. We have a very simple bridge right here. We do not have any trem system inside of this guitar. Obviously, it is a very simple setup. This right here would make a fantastic first guitar for somebody who needs to learn the absolute basics. Now, I know the absolute basics, but it's the practice that I need. I have the memorization down. I just need the practice, and I'm hoping that with this YouTube channel I will motivate myself to have the time to go ahead and do that. So, I mean, everybody needs a reason to push themselves, right? We have a tone knob and a volume knob. That's all you need since we only have one pickup. We don't need any selector switches or anything like that. We do have a built-in tuner into this thing. So this right here is actually one of the main reasons why I decided to go ahead and utilize this guitar as a guitar to learn on whenever I was growing up. So whenever I had gotten this guitar, let me tell you this story here. This guitar was in the garage of one of my friends. His name was Dennis. And me and him, I mean, we were young boys at the time. Like, I don't know, 14, maybe 15, maybe a little younger, sometime in there. And we were just doing what boys do, and we were feeling destructive. Well, Dennis had this old guitar, and he had said, you know what, let's take this out and smash it to hell on the concrete. That would be pretty fun. And I had said, you know what, I would love to learn how to play guitar. So instead of smashing that, why don't you give it to me? And it would really help me out and give me an opportunity to learn some guitar. So he said, all right, if you want it, man, it's yours, but it doesn't work. And I'm like, as long as I can practice the chords and whatnot, I'm good. So now I had myself a guitar to practice on. I spent a while, like, learning the chords, learning the pentatonic scale, learning, you know, the odds and ends, but without a legitimate amplifier to be able to listen to what I'm playing, it was I got out of it. I got out of it pretty quickly. Now, I'm not sure what the story is behind the spray paint on this thing. It was like that whenever I'd gotten this thing. So, obviously, we have some spray paint on the fretboard itself. I went ahead and I cleaned up the frets good enough so I can play on it, but I left the paint on these upper frets just to add to the aesthetic of the guitar. So at the time, I knew very, very little about electrical work, but that did not stop me from opening up this guitar and trying to figure out how I could get it up and going again. It took some effort, and it took some trial and error, and in all honesty, I'm still not positive how I managed to do it, but I did actually get this guitar going again. This guitar, the tuner operates on a 9-volt battery that you just plug into the back. Actually, I'm not sure if I have a battery still in here. Nope. Good. I don't want any corrosion destroying that. But 9-volt battery that you just plug into the back and the tuner turns on. Now, normally, you know, I wasn't really concerned about the tuner, but I saw this little headphone jack right there. And I figured out that with the battery in, now that I got this working, the tuner would actually play into headphones so I could listen to what I was playing. This absolutely changed my world with this guitar. We have clean and overdrive on this guitar too, so that was fun. And we also have a little volume knob built into the tuner. I was able to figure out how to use the tuner too. At the time that I had gotten this guitar, it was back when internet and cell phones and things like that, I mean, they were around, but not nearly as advanced as they were. Like, we were at the next generation past the flip phones, and whenever I'd gotten this, I had not gotten a phone yet. So all I had to look up was like things I could find at the library. This was still kind of back in those days, and I would like just read books and whatnot and try and figure things out. And I figured out how to tune the guitar. At the time that I had gotten this, I think that there was 2 strings missing, and I can't remember when I finally got around to getting those 2 strings, but they were different gauge strings than the rest of the setup, and I mean, it was a mess. This guitar was an absolute mess whenever I was growing up, but I did manage to get it up and going, and I mean, I like the fact that I saved this otherwise destroyed guitar and turned it into something that I was learning on. Now, the guitar itself does sound pretty good. I mean, it's still running strong. I can plug it right into an amplifier and she still plays. It is covered in dust, though. My normal recording studio is no longer a place that I can go, so we're just in this corner in the garage where we're doing construction. So this is just where I'm at. I bet the acoustics are not going to be great, but let's go ahead and plug this thing in, and I'll go ahead and play y'all some tones. Now, like I said, I'm not great, and I'm used to receiving criticism on YouTube because this right here is not the first YouTube channel that I've made. I doubt that this right here will be a primary YouTube channel of mine, but I do like showing off the instruments that have stories behind them, and this right here is one of my favorite stories because this is what got that spark going. Now, the Peavey Rockmaster, I mean, it's a stereotypical cheapish guitar. I imagine the humbucker is ceramic. I can't remember, and I don't feel like pulling it out. The bridge, very, very, very basic. There's no trem system, so I don't really have to worry about this thing going out of tune too terribly quickly. The volume and tone, I mean, besides that, this is a very, very simple setup. 21 frets on the fretboard. They're medium jumbo, nothing real fancy about them. The frets, the actual frets themselves could use a good polishing, and there is dust on them, just from a lifetime of of adventures. But let's go ahead. Now, I don't have my normal amp with me, so it is in the place that I cannot go, which is where my recording studio is as well. But this right here is humble beginnings. So I do have a little mini Fender practice amp, and that will be enough to show off the tones. I mean, like I had said, I am not very good, so practice amp will be more than enough for me to embarrass myself here. Here I am half a dozen hours later with a Ziploc bag with some chicken wings in it. That'll be nice for later. I'm wearing a different pair of pants, and I am quite exhausted after a interesting day. So I'm gonna sit back, relax, and just play me some music on my little Peavey right here. This right here is one of the best parts about music. Being able to just relax and enjoy the noise that comes out of your guitar. So, just for the sake of letting you guys hear the different tones that this thing can do, let's go ahead and just turn this on, hopefully. Alright, is it on? Not yet. Oh, there we go. Alright, volume's just stupidly far down. Alright, are we tuned up? Not really. Okay, so this is the Peavey whenever we have the tune set to as warm as it can possibly get. And boy, oh boy, that is as warm as it gets. This is something that you'd play on a winter afternoon whenever you want to warm yourself up. I don't think that some coffee and chili would make that any warmer. Now normally whenever it's warm like this, I'll do like blues sounding songs and things like that. Not quite how that song is supposed to be played, but whenever I had decided to learn how to play that, I learned how to play it from watching Pink Floyd music videos. And I didn't actually learn how to play it from somebody telling me how to do it. I just kind of figured it out from watching them play it. And whenever you got yourself a real warm melody like that, you play yourself something soft, and it sounds really good. Let's go ahead and spice it up with something with a little bit more zest. Okay. Alright, this is not overdrive. We are still as clean as we were. We just turned the tone all the way up to 10, and it has quite a bit more pop behind it now. It almost sounds like an overdrive's been activated, but it has not been activated. Now, keeping the tone nice and zesty, let's go ahead and throw in some overdrive. Okay, now that we have some overdrive on, just about halfway, this isn't quite distortion, it's just overdrive, but I am doing this through a little tiny 9-volt amp. Let's see how well this goes. That amp is absolutely struggling. It does sound good though. Just the standard overdrive sounds really nice. This right here is an intro to, or actually the outro to my other YouTube channel based around firearms. I think it goes like this. Been a long time since I've played it. I just kind of threw it together. Really has that George Thorogood sound there at the end. I wish I had a slide or something that I could play with this George Thorogood situation that we got going on here. See if I can remember this right here. This is... That's a little piece of Avenged Sevenfold. I can't quite remember how the rest of it goes. But with the overdrive, it doesn't... Like, from that piece that's buried alive, and normally with that, it is more of a clean sound. It just doesn't sound right with the overdrive. Now let's go ahead, kick up that overdrive to a little bit of what would be considered lower-end distortion. I don't have a distortion pedal with me. All I have is this little 9-volt amp. Let's really push this thing to its limits and see how much it screams. Okay, well, alright. It sounds so bad. Wow, that is a chunky sounding distortion. It actually sounds kind of decent considering that's a little tiny amp. I wonder how well it's going to show up on this camera. Now, I don't have a whammy bar, so I can't really do that much of Van Halen, but... That actually sounded really cool. Before I embarrass myself and mess that up, I'm going to go ahead and just leave that right there. So this little tiny 9-volt amp is actually quite nice, but I guess it's kind of fitting going from this cheap little amp, and we got ourselves this cheapo guitar. A setup very similar to this is what I would have had growing up, except I didn't have the amplifier, and I couldn't have the amplifier. If I made too much noise growing up, then I got some unwanted attention. So having the headphones was actually the way that I did it, and this sounds like way chunkier from an actual amplifier. I haven't played this guitar in a very long time, and I don't remember it sounding that deep with overdrive. But then again, last time I played this through an amplifier, it was from a Fender Mini Deluxe. And that amplifier was a little on the sketchy side. So maybe this one right here is just a little bit better, a little bit beefier. I'm not entirely sure. All in all, I would have very much enjoyed the amplifier growing up. But since I didn't have an amplifier, I learned a little trick. Since this right here has a little built-in tuner and a little headphone slot, what I would do whenever I wanted to play for people is I would actually take an aux cord, stick it into the headphone slot, and I'd stick the other end of the aux cord into one of those portable speakers. And like that, I could use that little portable speaker as like a makeshift amplifier, and it worked pretty well. I mean, considering that that was all that I had, I mean, I could play for people, and it was fun. It was a really good time. But, yeah, man, every time I see this thing, it just brings me back to the old days. My mother had a boyfriend back then who was, like, not the greatest and kindest of people. And he, like, I tried to avoid making noise as often as possible. And I just talked about guitar around him, and this guy freaked out. He was like, "There's no way you're getting a guitar. It's not gonna happen." And I'm like, man, I've already got one. I've had one for years now. So this old girl just kind of stayed hidden in my closet, and I didn't let him see it, or like he had no idea it was there. And I would just always play on the headphones, and that was how I was able to get away with having a guitar and being able to enjoy it without making a ton of noise. This was actually the perfect setup for somebody that had to fly under the radar but still wanted to somewhat learn how to play guitar. So that was what I did. Anyway, that is the story behind this in particular Peavey Rockmaster. The beauty about this world and all the guitars in it is I can sit here and spend X amount of time talking about specific guitars. But if you get into specific guitars, each individual guitar has its own story behind it, and there's so many out there that have such immaculate, amazing stories. And a lot of these stories have to do with, you know, either bringing a lot of happiness to someone's life or helping them through tough times, or like, I mean, this guitar right here, if I didn't have it, man, I would have been one miserable person. I wasn't able to do television or video games back then just because, for whatever reason, because I enjoyed it, I wasn't allowed to do it, I guess. So this was just one of the things that I had that I could do without getting noticed, and it really helped me through a tough point in my life. Looks like I gotta oil this thing up a little bit. We're starting to get a bit of rust on the bridge, but I guess it just kind of adds to the super old and very gritty aesthetics. The nuts, or not the nuts, the frets definitely need to be polished. Probably gonna oil up this fretboard too, because it's pretty rough. But I haven't, like I said, I haven't touched this thing in a while. As a matter of fact, I'm probably gonna play it a little bit more just for fun, but I'll do that off camera. I don't want to disturb you guys with my horrendously bad playing. Anyway, folks, if you like this kind of stuff, subscribe to the channel, because I have quite a few guitars with some pretty incredible stories behind them. Like this one right here. Oh boy, the story behind that guitar, my God. It's gonna be an adventure whenever I get around to that one. I got some acoustics over here, and wow, this one especially. I got plans with this guitar though. That's gonna be a really fun time. I've got some guitars leaning over in the corner there too. Every instrument just has one sort of story or another, even if it's not specifically around that instrument. The person who decides to get that instrument has a really cool story and reason why they decided to get that. So subscribe to the channel for more. I fully plan on covering more instruments that have very unique stories behind them. If you like the video, do me a favor and actually like the video. This right here is going to be the first video in a series, so I'm not really expecting anyone to watch it. If you did watch it, hey, thank you. I appreciate that, and I do genuinely hope that you decide to stick around. Okay, well, that being said, I'm just going to say, hey, thanks for watching, folks. I'm out of here.